I wanted to do this video on something that came across my attention basically with the golden sphere and light skin channels. So the title says, "Why is there no light skinned Chrissy?" Well, if you've just looked at the dark skinned platforms and the light skinned platforms, you would see who has purpose here, who is really trying to get out a message here, and who isn't, who's just fucking around, who's just playing around and not really caring about any fucking message. You see, the dark-skinned colorism crybabies, though I believe that colorism doesn't exist and light-skin privilege is not real, and all they are really whining about is, why am I dark, blah, 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 I'm sad, I am dark. And, it's just hidden in ideas of colorism or whatever. That's what I think. And I've said why I think this. I'm not going to get into it. But you can see that despite the fact that I do not agree with their perspective, I do not agree with why they do, what they believe in, they are efficient, successful, and smart about how they go about it. So they don't like to basically, be as inclusive as the dark-skinned colorism crybabies. I'm saying the light-skinned side. Many of the time, the light-skinned mixed platforms have always had a history of dividing, and conquering only themselves. Alienating only themselves because they don't know how to get their message across. Or do they even really have a message? That's what you have to wonder at some point. And, with the dark skin colorism crybabies, for one, they have light skin allies. They have light skin saviors, as they love to call them. And you see these light skinned saviors will try and say, that they support and they believe that's the dark skin colorism crybabies. I might think different things of the light skinned saviors or whatever. But at the end of the day, what do the dark skin colorism crybabies do? They take their message, let them take the message and, you know, move it forward. They are inclusive to those who include who have the same views as they do, basically. You know, if it goes along with their platform, they include that individual. Now, I'm not saying they let them into their spaces. No, I'm saying they accept their support. Then, on top of it, it's like self-awareness, for example. Dark skins are aware that they are a minority. But for some reason, the light skins on their side of the platform do not realize they're a minority. So what dark skins did, they took brown skins so then they could have more numbers. And they loved to take especially the dark brown, the medium brown somewhat, people basically, so then they can have a lot more numbers. It starts to fall off when the numbers fall lower. See, someone who's light brown, we're not actually the main area of what the majority is. Brown skinned women would be. We fall under that category. Yes, we're more prevalent than dark skinned women, but I do feel like many of the time they feel they don't need us as much as medium and dark brown women. Now, they might have any kind of opinion towards brown skinned women, but at the end of the day, they use these women to benefit them and their platform, to make their platforms much bigger, you know. And that's how Chrissy was born, because you can hear that many of the time she would say dark and brown skin. After a while, she got more exclusive as time went on when she had a big enough platform. And now we see that, Chrissy is a very big platform, bigger than any other colorism platform. On the light skin side of it, they do not do this, okay? One, with dark skinned allies, do you ever see any dark skinned allies on their platforms? No. They're probably, if they come on their platforms, most of the time it's a matter of time before somebody who is light skinned trolls them and attacks them and sends them running, basically. And, you know, they basically further prove the point that colorism crybabies were trying to make, to actually convince the dark-skinned allies that maybe the dark-skinned colorism crybabies are right, which is terrible. Because, I mean, like, those were the people who actually were having a sense of voice of reason, and now you just turned them over to the other side. Then on top of it, they're the brown-skinned people. You know, they don't accept the brown-skinned people at all. And many of the time, then we have the light brown-skinned people they will tolerate. Sometimes, basically. They will ignore, sometimes, if everything is said exactly the same as them and you are promoting them to the most highest level possible. It seems like it's honestly impossible for it to stay that way. You do see sometimes for a fleeting moment that light brown skinned women will be ignored and not told to, not met with the most hostility, basically. And to me, it's just like, on top of it, I specifically was kind of like making a video about this last summer in response to Elin Jones about how, light-skinned platforms never make it and they never survive, because she was talking about that, and I made a video on that. And I was specifically talking about the fact that if you continue to basically make yourself smaller and smaller and smaller and more alienated, you will never get far, because you keep alienating yourself from anyone who can share your message and move your message forward. Then on top of it, what made me actually think about this was this live stream I saw from Black Skin is Amazing, and how these people are a multiracial movement. Golden, who I do not use her full name, and Fran were on a live stream. Fran is light-skinned and black. The other two are biracial and light-skinned. And you can pay attention to what they said in part of their live. And she's saying that you should go on the black side. And I understand they had an issue other than that. But the fact that they brought that up, that the person was black, and they shouldn't be in their spaces with mixed people, you further are alienating yourself. It's over and over and over again. And the reason why the light skin platforms don't make it, because they try to act like they don't, but in some platforms, many of the time they can't help themselves, it seems like. But they constantly have this hierarchy thing. The hierarchy wheel is going to kill everybody, basically, because nobody in the space is white. The hierarchy wheel is only meant to uplift white people. It doesn't uplift anybody else. But it constantly, basically, weeds out people who are more black, more black, more black, more black, less black, less black, less black. So then, eventually, it gets to a point where those people are completely alienated to a small sector, because they can't have light-skinned black people. No brown-skinned people who can see their point. No people who are dark-skinned who are allies. And then on top of all those things, I was thinking of the fact that, all those people, well, besides really, honestly, from my perspective, I mean, well, technically the last thing I said about, I guess so, okay. So I've had a beef with all four of them at one point or another. But I would say multiracial movement, I never actually said her channel. She had a video I responded to, and I talked about her video and compared her perspective of blackness to Cerebro's perspective of blackness, of which I agreed with more. Um, but I made videos on all of them, and I've had a beef with all three of them, I'll say. Maybe leave MRM out of it. But a major thing is that you notice in the colorism crybaby sector, they don't care what you sucked last night, whether it was a black cock, white cock, pussy. They don't give a fuck, okay? Most of the time, you'll see lesbians sometimes. You can see someone who is married to a black man, white man, so forth. They don't necessarily say on all or most of their platforms that they have an issue with you simply because you do not suck the black dick. You know, all those three people mentioned, I beefed with specifically because I have no preference to suck black dick. I've never sucked the black dick, don't want to, have no interest. And that's a major thing. The colorism issue should not be based off of who you like, what you like, if you like anybody for that matter. But another thing about the whole situation with these light skinned channels, they are heavily connected to dark skinned black men. When that happens, it's not even pro mixed race women or light skinned women. It's really pro dark skinned men or whatever else they control. Because that's who's control. But I'm sorry, I got cut off there. But main thing I wanted to say here was many of the people, are controlled by black men. So that's pretty much who they answer to, basically. Because they're not really able to stand on their own, it seems like. Often it seems as though with the dark skinned black women's colorism crybaby channels, they are controlled more by each other, by the dark skinned black woman. And that's who controls them, basically. They aren't beholden to anyone else with a different perspective or interest. They're only like minded individuals. And this is why these people have basically no platform. And this is why, on the light skin side of the colorism platforms, of these social media platforms, you find that most of the people, actually all of the light skinned platforms, are struggling channels who can't even get 20,000, 15,000 subscribers. And this is why there will never be a light skinned Chrissy. They don't want it to be a light skinned Chrissy. They don't want anybody to understand them because they constantly alienate themselves and they say everyone has to agree with everything that they do in their life, and you have to agree with everything that person does in their life. So, of course, your platform is basically nothing. No surprise.